Welcome back to another video blog episode of Recruiting 101. This will be the final little video message that I've added on to the blogs that I post on my site, getaaron.com. And it's just kind of a little bit of addition, throwing some more thoughts to some of the posts that I have, some of the things that I kind of touch on a weekly basis that I think are really important in the process. The reason I wanted to do these video blogs was to accompany really the three most important people in the recruiting process: the parents, the prospect, and the high school coach. So the first two video sessions, I talked a little bit about some misconceptions in the process with the parents, some misconceptions in the process with the prospect. And in this episode, I want to talk about the high school coach. I have always felt so strongly about the high school coach and what they do in the process. I have, every time I was going through the process as a college coach, the high school coach had so much to do with how we move forward in our process, no matter where I was at all the different programs. They were such an influential part of the process. They were somebody that we wanted to hear the insight that they had, because they get a chance to see the prospects on a daily basis. But we all need to grow. We all need to get better. So these are some thoughts for the high school coach to go out there and consider. And, I'll always say this, and maybe I didn't say it in the other two episodes, the other two little video blogs that I put together, but we ask the kids, we ask the parents to get better. Coaches got to get better too. So if this doesn't, you don't feel like this applies to you, well then great. Wash your hands of it and move on. If you have the perfect recruiting process for your school, then no harm, no foul. But if there's some things in here that in the posts that I have on the site, if there's some things that I say in this little portion here that can maybe enhance what you're doing for your program, for your kids, why not take a listen? Why not take a chance to improve yourself the same way our kids improve themselves in the off-season conditioning and the different things that we do. In the written portion, the written blog, I talked a little bit about, some one of the most common questions that I have ever gotten is when to start. So I put that in the written portion. Probably could have elaborated on that and maybe never would have stopped talking on this video blog. So I did that a little bit on purpose so people don't have to listen to me go on a 30 or 40 minute spiel just on one topic. And then the second portion, there's so many different things that you can talk about from the coaching component. But when to start and constant communication are things that I talked a little bit in the written portion where, that's something that's really probably the two most important aspects. So take a little bit from that written portion and kind of hopefully take some things away and apply it back to your program. I wanted to spend this quick little video portion talking to the coaches just about exposure. Maybe the third most important thing that gets brought up is how do I get exposure? How do I get my kids out in front of college coaches to make sure that they're noticed? This is probably the most overhyped part of the recruiting process. Exposure, I think, is one of the ugliest words in the recruiting game. I think it's highly overrated. Exposure doesn't really mean anything. I think it's a word very similar to process and culture that people have gravitated to in the recruiting process and used it to try and, spin things that they want or create a company or start a service. So when you talk a little bit about exposure, it falls back to one thing for me. It falls back to relationships. If you're a high school coach and you have a relationship with a program, a coaching staff, that you can get honest feedback, that they will take a look at your players, that what it takes to play at this university or this program, those relationships are valuable to that exposure. And then kind of where it goes from there is the natural progression of recruiting. As prospects start to gain attention based off of the guidance you give them and the exposure that you got them through your personal relationships, they're going to take off from there. And they're either going to be good enough based off what the college programs are evaluating, or they're not. And I don't think there's anybody out there who says, I want to send my player, my high school player, to a program that doesn't think he's good enough. And that's where that relationship component comes into play. So I'm always such a huge advocate for high school coaches reaching out to the college coaches that come through, on a yearly basis as area recruiters who stop in. I talked on one of my most recent blogs a little bit about how some of those schools outside of the traditional, foot traffic or getting people just through the door in a natural way, yeah, you're in a little bit of a tougher boat, but you can still build relationships. You can still go clinic with coaches. College coaches are so open and so just, hey, come on in, let's talk some football or talk some basketball. That's the easiest thing to do. Go work a camp. Different things like that, build those relationships and get it started so that when you have a player that you're like, you know what, I'm kind of on the fence of where he could fit, reach out to that coach. Talk to him. Hey, let me know what you think. Do you think he can play at your level? Do you think he's, somebody who could fit into your league? And then just kind of let it build from there. But ultimately, that exposure piece comes down to your relationship as a coach with coaches that that you're trying to send your prospects to try to get them in front of those players. I just think that word is spun too much right now. I think it's changed the game a little bit. We're more about just trying to get people in front of prospects in front of coaches than we are really trying to make sure that it's the right fit. So when I think about exposure, the number one message, I thought about some things to talk about on this, but as a high school coach, to be able to take the exposure word and make sure that we are putting it in reference to making sure you're getting the right feedback from those college coaches, and that comes just down to the relationships that you have. I kind of want to wrap up with this. This is going to be the shortest one of my blogs. I think the three elements that we've talked about, the high school prospect, the parent, and the high school coach, if you can really put all the wheels in motion and you can get things going together, you're going to find yourself a right fit. But do not forget about this, now, as the high school coach. You have a responsibility to this recruiting approach. And so many love it and just take it and run with it, and they're super invested into it that, that might not be the problem. But there's some that, this is too much, or I don't know what I can and cannot do. Maybe I can't help a prospect, when in fact maybe they could. But I will say this is the message that I kind of want to leave any high school coach that gets a chance to listen to this, and then maybe reference back some of the information that I've posted. Someone's going to do it. Someone's going to give them that information. We are well past the day and age where it's just wait for the college to stroll into your high school, talk to them, and then that builds the interest. You have to be proactive. Someone's going to do it. So if you want to be involved, if you want to be giving that insight, which I hope you do, then you have to get in the mix. You have to get in the fight. The same thing we ask the players to do. And we ask those players to get up and battle when you're down, 0-3 on the season. And what do you get up and try to find a way to be 1-3 for? Because that's the battle. That's the challenge. That's the grind. It's the same thing as a high school coach. Someone's going to do it for them. The thing that I talk to parents and families a lot about is there's a lot of misinformation out there, and that's a challenge. We don't want misinformation, but those kids are looking and asking, and the parents are searching for information from somebody, and they're going to take information from somebody. And I hope the drive is to have that be you, the number one resource. Again, there's a time and a place for services. I've said it. I run a service. It's a little different than a lot of them out there, but there's services out there that have benefits. But what I don't want to hear as a coach complain about kids getting misinformation if in fact you're not doing it. So get in the mix, get in the battle. They are going to search out that information from somebody. They are going to search out that information from some entity, from some element. So let's make sure that you are going out there and putting yourself in position where you're in the mix. You are giving them that information based off of the relationships you have with the coaches that come through, the experience you have from your years of being around the game and seeing other prospects go through. So that's my biggest piece of advice to a high school coach. So they're going to get advice. They're going to search it out from somebody. But let's definitely make sure that it's you all putting yourself in position to give them the most important advice, the most important information, the stuff that can really make an impact, and making sure that any prospect finds themselves in a good fit. If you've enjoyed listening to these video blogs, I've had some great interest on the site. So I've enjoyed doing it, but if you've enjoyed it, please feel free to reach out to me on the site. I've gotten some good feedback. I've gotten some, comments and different things about some of this information that I'm sharing. I enjoy doing this, but if I can help you a little bit more, feel free to reach out to me right on getaaron.com. You can find multiple ways to reach out and touch base with me and see how maybe I can help you as a prospect, you as a parent, or even you as a high school coach navigate what is really a wild and challenging process, but it's one that can be very fulfilling and one that can be very beneficial at the end. So again, thanks for everybody that got a chance to listen, got a chance to kind of hear some of my thoughts, and I look forward to hearing from everybody soon.